Wonderful. So welcome everybody. My name is Alex. I'm the project manager for the fellowships program at ANH Academy. I'm based at Tufts University, and I'm joined here today with my colleagues Will Masters and Shaelin. Cullen is the project coordinator, and Will is the program director and professor. And today is an opportunity for us to share with you this really exciting second round of the ANH Academy's Science Policy Fellowship Program. So today you'll hear from us about why we have this program, what the ANH Academy intends to achieve with these fellowships, and we'll walk you through the application process, screen share like how our application portal works. And we'll have plenty of time at the end, for you to ask us questions about your specific proposal, and any questions you might have about the project in general. So I think I'll turn it over now to you, Will, to explain, the background of the project, and then I'll go into the mentorship and policy placement, and then Shaylin will talk about the application process.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Shaelin. Thanks to everybody for joining. And we're especially lucky to have three current fellows on the call. So we'll introduce them. You'll have a chance to ask them questions if you like. And we're happy to follow up about this afterwards. So what I'll share is the background, as Alex just mentioned, where we have been building this Agriculture, Nutrition, and Health Academy for about 15 years. It's now this global community of people like yourselves, people like those in the photo, who sometimes gather in person in Academy Week conferences in either Africa or Asia, but mostly engage online in meetings like this. And we provide a variety of kinds of support to Academy members. There's now over 10,000 people actively engaged with online content and with in-person events within countries of a variety of types that we'll be able to talk about today. And this is happening primarily in Africa and Asia, but also across Latin America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and North America. The activity is funded by the UK government, the FCDO, through its international development programs, and by the Gates Foundation in a partnership called Nutritious Food Systems that has invested in a number of other activities towards the goals that we'll discuss today. The project is led by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, left, by the team that you've just heard from, Alex, Shaelin, and myself at Tufts, together with Nola Jenkins, and then Bhavani Shankar and colleagues at the University of Sheffield in the UK. So what are we doing here today through this program of science policy fellowships? Our goal is to support evidence-based decisions by policymaking organizations, meaning either government agencies or semi-governmental, parastatal, associated organizations, primarily operating in the most populous countries at greatest risk of malnutrition and environmental harm. That means Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, using results of recently conducted research. So our goal is to take these scientifically valid impact assessments, the kind of program evaluations, other kinds of work you might have been doing over recent years, and to build your skills and experience in taking those results and finding the words, finding the language, finding the way of explaining in policy briefs or presentations with the meetings and other positioning, if you will, the committees, the councils, the policy dialogues that can bring scientific evidence into operational guidance, where the goal is to take the data from impact assessments or program evaluations or other policy analyses, and help people deliver larger volumes of the foods needed for healthy diets through supply chains, agricultural production, distribution, transformation, and retail sale, with greater volumes delivered to consumers. That means more production and less loss and waste along the way, in Africa and South Asia, where we're constantly thinking about the ongoing damage from climate change, and the ongoing concerns that all of us have about land use change, about air pollution, about plastics, about many other aspects of the environment. We're all concerned about rural-urban inequities, about caste or ethnicity or other kinds of inequities, and of course, the most important inequity of all, which is gender imbalance in the world as a whole. So we have cross-cutting concerns about climate, equity, and gender, and our specific interest is increasing the use of healthy diets and also increasing supply through greater production as well as loss and waste reduction. So operationally, what we do in this program is award 3 science policy fellowships in this coming year. Each is for 12 months, 1 year, of full-time work by the individual fellow, supported by a fixed stipend. So this is not a project with a budget that we reimburse cost for. Instead, fellows submit quarterly reports and receive fixed payments that are intended to support their full-time living activity, plus any travel or other work that would be helpful, other expenses that would be helpful to achieve the fellow's mission. We also offer a modest stipend to 2 different mentors, where this is really crucial for the proposal to be likely to have impact. The proposal needs to have a policy mentor who is well placed in a public sector organization in Africa or Asia. And that person must be well placed to advise on how research can be used for policy decisions. So we'll talk about the kind of person this is, but it's someone in your network who might be connected to you in some way, who would be interested in the results of the research you have to offer, and who is themselves very close to political influence over actual decisions. Our focus is on actual actions and choices of governments in the things that governments do to change the food system. We also provide this fixed stipend to a research mentor who would be someone in a university or other research-oriented institution to advise on the validity of the data and methods. And so for most researchers, that's quite easy. You have a mentor you've already been working with or someone you would want to work with. The challenge is this policy side of the science to policy platform. Our program is characterized by uniquely flexible arrangements. So we have been quite successful in the past and able to persuade donors that we can have impact by trusting you, by trusting the fellows, first of all, by selecting fellows whose proposals are truly compelling, and then supporting those fellows and allowing you to make your own decisions. First of all, about the start date, anytime between June and December. We provide these quarterly payments based on detailed progress reports have done, where typically people take their initial proposal and then adapt it, adjust based on what you learn in the course of the year, and continued dialogue, these regular webinars among the fellows, calls among current fellows and past fellows, and quite a bit of email feedback. In selecting the fellows, we have very clear goals and selection criteria. There's very broad eligibility, but very narrow selection criteria. What we are looking for is extremely specific and clear. The full proposals are due on the 28th of February. Candidates will be notified in early April so that one could start even as soon as June or as late as December, depending on the situation. So our twin topic areas are either, on the one hand, creating demand for healthy diets so that consumers can actually acquire and use the foods that would be needed for overall health. That would involve actions that might alter access, affordability, and also food choice among the items that are being sold at the local market in a rural area or around a town. The other priority is increasing the availability of those foods. So availability comes from agricultural production and distribution and trade, where every location is producing what it is able to produce and then buying and selling to get the remainder through supply chains that may be leaky, that may have loss and waste. And so we're very interested in actions that could produce food in ways that would limit the loss and waste along the flow with a larger volume of high quality product available at the consumer. So access, affordability, and food choice is on the left, availability is on the right, and that can come from underlying food supply in agriculture and international trade or regional trade within a country, as well as loss and waste at any stage of that supply chain. Each project should also address one or both of the cross-cutting themes that I discussed: climate change and the environment, and equity and gender. So the three current fellows that we have on the call today are Daud Gashu from Ethiopia, Pulasti Amarasinghe from Sri Lanka, and Wajiha Haq from Pakistan. Olutayo Adeyemi cannot join us today, but you can see from their titles that the idea is to have a way of changing the food system, some point of entry, some action that researchers can take to take observations and transform them into some actionable information that would alter outcomes in a location. So we'll be able to talk with them about those projects, but of course, this year's projects should not be the same. They should complement these, be different in location, in method, in topic, in question, in the point of entry, the entry point to change the food system, but always formulated in a way that specifies what is the fact, what are the observations, what is the discovery, what is the basic evidence, what program evaluation or impact assessment, often a meta-analysis or studies that you may have done yourself and the literature that you are uniquely familiar with because of your prior research. You have a distinctive advantage in bringing that evidence to bear on decisions. And also in the proposal, specify what are the actual government actions that could be influenced by the information. So the crucial distinction between this and other research fellowships is that our unambiguous goal is that the proposals clearly explain how you would touch the levers of power, how you would touch people in government who might have opportunities to actually alter programs or government investments, regulations, and other actions of government. So the selection criteria focuses on, is this a big deal? Is this likely to have significant impact? In large things, if there's two equal likelihoods of success and one is bigger than the other, we would choose the bigger one. This clearly is aimed at influencing sort of how people think about their own research, so that you think about what would be the highest and best use of your knowledge, if you're interested in this kind of policy impact. So the kinds of titles, these are purely invented titles. No, not any real researcher. Of course, there are real researchers doing this kind of thing, but this would be a typical proposal title. This would be another one. This would be perhaps a third kind of title, a fourth, and a fifth. And what you see is that in each case, the title that we would ask you to use is one that specifies what research method and what evidence, what kind of data observations were used to turn basic facts about the world into actionable guidance on some topic in a place. So the place is typically at the end of the sentence of the title. The method is typically somewhere in the leverage, the way that the food system is altered is somewhere in the middle, and then your evidence is the starting point for what the work would be. So I hope that gives you a quick introduction to what the fellowships have been, that have, I think, been extraordinary, or are so far, partially through the year, extraordinarily promising for the round one fellows, the kind of things that we're looking for in this round two. And I'll turn it now over to Alex to share how this would actually work.
Great, thanks, Will. Just pull up my slides here. Great. So we've heard a little bit about the background of ANH Academy and what we're trying to accomplish with this fellowship. And I'd now like to explain, who are the people that you're going to be talking with while you're engaging in this fellowship opportunity. The people you select in your mentorship, component of the fellowship through your policy placement, and then with us, with the ANH Academy. So to start, fellows will be guided by two mentors, a research mentor and a policy mentor. In both cases, we imagine that fellows will have worked closely with their mentor in the past. For the research mentor, that could be your academic advisor during your graduate studies. It could be someone you worked with while employed at a university or other research institution. That person is guiding your research and helping you further the science that's informing your work. In the case of the policy mentor, that might be from a variety of other connections. This could be someone you met, through just your general network. It could be someone you met at a conference or other policy dialogue that you were involved in previously. But we have noticed, with our first round and the fellows that are currently working now, that the strongest applicants and our current fellows had a prior relationship, with both mentors in most cases. However, applicants can propose a new relationship for the mentorship role if the fellow and the mentor are well placed. So what do the mentors do? The research mentors provide guidance and ensure the quality of scientific evidence used in the project. So imagine that this is somebody who you can go to ask questions about the scientific work that you're doing. Is my mathematical model correct? Am I collecting data the right way? Those kinds of questions you could direct at this research mentor. The policy mentor is a little different. This is going to be someone who will provide guidance on your communication. How are you describing the work that you're doing to make it relevant for policy decisions? How are you interfacing not only with their organization, the policy organization you're trying to have some sort of influence over their decision making, but the other people in that organization who are involved in the policy decision-making process. So this person is as close to the decision-making process as possible to be the highest quality mentor. But there are a variety of roles or job titles this person could have that would make them fit to be a policy mentor. So for example, they could be, in the case of our current fellow, Daud Gashu, his policy mentor is the director, the state minister of the Ministry of Ag in Ethiopia. So they can be very, very high level. They can be, somewhere in the mid-tier. But as long as they are involved in the policy decision-making process in some way and have some reasonable influence over how that process works in the policy organization you're working with, they're going to be fit for purpose. And we've seen a variety of proposals with different relationships identified that were all strong. So there's flexibility so long as the mentor can actually help you turn your scientific evidence into decision making. That's the most important thing. All of that is really what we mean when we say policy placement. So the policy placement is meant to take up a significant portion of the fellowship. At least 1/3 of your working time will be dedicated to this policy placement activity. This activity or placement must occur within a policy organization that's physically located in Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. Um, but your activities could be done remotely. So, for example, our current fellow, Olatayo, who lives in Nigeria, um, she lives in, I believe, Lagos, but her policy placement is in Abuja, which is far away, right? So she's doing her um, interaction remotely, even though they're in the same country, which is totally fine. The goal of the policy placement is to work with your policy mentor to gain hands-on experience in the policymaking process, in the process by which policy decisions are made, so that these decisions are informed by your research results and that you can build connections and skills and knowledge about how this, very specific decision-making process works in that policy organization. Because, you know, policymaking is very different in different contexts. It's different in different times, right? So the idea is that through this policy placement, you'll become not only an expert in the science and the research that you do, but also how people are making decisions in the agency that's relevant for your work. Here are some example activities that could be part of a policy placement component. There's participation in a panel or a committee or working group. You could manage a consultative process. This could be hearings of stakeholders or comment periods on a budget or bill. You could be involved in translating research findings from a scientific format into a more actionable format that decision makers can use more easily, like creating policy briefs or hosting hearings. You can liaise between decision makers across different agencies, and you can engage externally on behalf of the government agency. So in addition to working with your mentors and the other people at policy organization with which you'll do your policy placement, you'll also have time to engage with our staff and the rest of the ANH Academy through a variety of ways. The first and most important are monthly meetings between myself, Will, Shaelin, and the other fellows in your cohort, where during these meetings, you'll share updates about your progress in your fellowship and you'll learn from each other. And I think these have been, really interesting, both for our staff and then also for the fellows, because I think as you saw, seeing their different projects in their different countries, our current fellows are working on very different aspects of the food system. But, by bringing everybody together, you're able to learn, a lot from each individual project and each individual person. And so I think these are just really, really great ways, not only to get feedback about what you're doing, but also to inform what you're doing with others' experience. Secondly, we have quarterly webinars that are focused on career development, where we'll talk with current fellows, past fellows from both this fellowship program and an older fellowship program called the Amana Fellowships that was based at ANH Academy. We have online research communities where you'll be invited to present your work and discuss with other ANH Academy members about specific topics. We have 2 research communities, which are actually focused on each of the main priorities of this fellowship. So we have one community about food access and demand for healthy diets, and we have another about food supply loss and waste. So it's very aligned. There's also plenty of opportunities to engage individually with myself, Will, and Shaelin about your fellowship work in the build up to your start date, during the fellowship, and after, as you're finalizing any outputs from your fellowship experience. And then lastly, you're invited to participate in ANH Academy Week. There'll be plenty of opportunities to share your research, either through poster presentations, participation in panels or plenaries. But we really do love to have fellows involved in sort of the capstone um, event that we host at ANH Academy. So I'll pause now. Before Shaelin goes into the selection criteria and the application process, I thought it'd be nice to invite the current fellows to just say hello, explain, what their fellowship project is, introduce themselves really briefly, so you can get a sense of who they are and what they're doing, before we go to the um, rest of the presentation and our Q&A at the end. So I see we have Wajiha Haq on the call, we have Daud Gashu and Pulashti Armisake. So let's start with Pulashti. We'll go to Daud and then Wajiha, just to quickly introduce yourselves and your project.
Yeah. Hi, Alex. So thanks for having me here. So let me quickly introduce myself. So I'm Pulastya Amarasinghe. I'm a research fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies in Sri Lanka. And my project is on policy communication on food marketing regulations for healthy diets in urban underserved settlements in Colombo. So it's mostly looking at how effective, it's evaluating how effective health communication can increase the understanding and the use of traffic light labeling systems, especially in these underserved communities that have very low awareness of these existing health policy communications, and then to identify and implement effective health policy communication platforms that can influence dietary behavior, especially among certain groups like mothers or children. And just to give you some background on my policy placement and also my research mentor. So my research mentor is Dr. Anjali Rao, whom I met through the ANH training of teachers, training of trainers, right? So platform back in a few years back, and last year. And she was the one who actually recommended, that I apply to the program, and she became my research mentor, and it's been great working with her. My policy mentor is actually my supervisor at my institution. So I work at a government, research or think tank. So, and we are heavily invested in policy research, and where we are directly involved in the policy making process. So, for me, it's been quite fun to use this evidence-based approach to policy, which we try to do at IPS, but here the resources are a lot more to get from ANH. And the team are very accommodating and helpful in getting the resources and providing feedback as well. So overall, it's been quite fun, doing my project in this inclusive health policy communication. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much, Pulashti. We go to Daud.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Daud Gashu, and I'm an associate professor at the Center for Food Science and Nutrition at Addis Ababa University. As Alex mentioned previously, my policy mentor is Dr. Sofia Kasa. She is the state minister at the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia. She is a soil scientist by profession, but among a lot of responsibilities, she oversees matters related to fertilizer in the country, which is related to my project. My research mentor is Dr. Edward Joy from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. We have long-standing research collaboration, and much of the evidence that I'm using for these projects comes from that partnership. The title of my project is Blended Fertilizer to Improve Access and Use of Healthy Diets. As you saw I would say on the news, if you're following that. To give some background about my project, there is high prevalence of micronutrient deficiency in Ethiopia. Although we have several nutrition interventions, such as dietary diversification, large-scale food fortification, and supplementation in place, these strategies have limited impact in rural areas where the population are most affected by micronutrient deficiency. And because cereals are consumed by almost everybody, everyone, including by poor rural communities, increasing the nutrient density of cereal crops, I believe, would provide an effective pathway to improving nutrition. And one way to achieve this is through the use of mineral blended fertilizers. Um, the minerals that are limited in the soil, limited in the population, and which we call this agronomic biofortification. Um, in our previous research, we showed that there is a significant variation in soil and crop mineral concentration across the country. But despite of this, Ethiopia still applies uniform type of conventional fertilizers nationwide, which is against the scientific recommendation to following the application of targeted fertilizer. In addition to improving access to healthy diets, the use of blended fertilizers can also increase livestock productivity, enhance soil health, and contribute to environmental sustainability. Um, so during my fellowship, I'm working on several activities, including development of soil nutrient maps to identify areas suitable for agronomic biofortification, conducting cost-benefit analysis of agronomic biofortification in Ethiopia, and assess the response of stable cereal crops to mineral fertilizers, and identification of cereals and geographic locations in Ethiopia that are potential targets for agronomic biofortification. So I want to say that many of us work in academia and research institutes. We collect a lot of data, we synthesize a lot of evidences, we publish a lot of papers every year, but often the evidence we produce does not make its way into policy or practice. So I believe this fellowship offers a unique opportunity to narrow that gap. It helps us translate science into practical policies and strategies. It will build us our skills and expand our networks. I also have good news for you that we are very fortunate to have very supportive and friendly ANH team guiding us through the journey. My advice to anyone considering this fellowship is invest your time in developing a smart, thoughtful, and compelling proposal, because it is worth devoting for that, worth spending much time. And I wish you good luck. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Daud. And last but not least, we'll go to Wajiha.
Thank you so much, Alex. So, hello everyone. My name is Wajiha Haq, Associate Professor of Economics at National University of Sciences and Technology in Pakistan. So, my research focuses on poverty, nutrition, gender, and social protection. So, particularly, I am working on effect of cash transfers on maternal and child nutrition outcomes in Pakistan. So actually, Pakistan is facing the problem of malnutrition, and stunting is very high. So under social protection, Pakistan is providing nutritional support to pregnant women, followed by awareness sessions and vaccination to children. So actually, I am directly working with the BIS policy and research unit. And my research mentor is Dr. Zafar Mahmood, where I work. So he is guiding my academic side, and director cash transfer, Naveed Akbar, is actually my policy mentor. So through this uh, fellowship, I have been lucky enough to have an enriched experience, and I have a direct access to policymakers, structured mentorship, and a strong support system from the ANH Academy, which is rare in most of academic programs or fellowships, as Daud has mentioned. So it has pushed me to think beyond the research papers and to understand how evidence can genuinely the national policy conversations. So I would like to recommend that anyone who is considering this fellowship should consider it. Why? Because it provides you a connection to the large network of researchers, government, and to the policymakers, where you can really translate all the thinking to the analysis and to then policies and implement and see the contribution towards the community. Thank you so much, Alex.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Wajiha and Endowed and Palashni for sharing. When we go to the Q&A at the end, if you have specific questions for them, you're welcome to ask them. But first, we'll talk about the application process and selection criteria, and I'll turn it over to Shaelin for that.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Dad, Plasti, and Wajiha again for sharing some words about your current experiences with the fellowship opportunity. It has been a pleasure working with the three of them and our fourth fellow, Aloteo, who unfortunately was not able to join us today. But we will be sharing news and updates about their projects on the ANH Academy site and on social media. So if you've not already signed up as a member and followed us on LinkedIn and Blue Sky, please do so if you have not already. Thank you to Will and Alex for sharing a bit about ANH and the fellowship project. As I share my screen, I just wanted to remind attendees to save any questions for the Q&A portion at the end of this presentation. And I will be going over the selection criteria and demonstrating the online submission portal on Submittable. Okay, so for selection criteria, we have 5 domains of the selection criteria, which all focus on the how and why does a project matter. So we are looking for proposals that demonstrate the need to bring data into decision making, inform new and existing policies with scientific evidence, and whether a project would support the career trajectory of a candidate. So as you can see, the selection criteria contains 5 elements with different weights and adds up to a total possible score of 100 points. For the first criteria, it starts with the assessment of the quality and feasibility of the proposed work plan. Reviewers will assess whether the proposal encapsulates the validity and usefulness of prior research, whether through your dissertation project or current work at your institution. And this should build off of a solid foundation of work rather than starting from scratch, which is very important since the fellowship opportunity is only 1 year long. The second criteria is the potential impact of the proposed work plan. And some questions to consider when determining the proposed impact include, will your project change public sector actions and inform decision-making on a large scale? And also, will the project enact decisions that matter to the target population? The third criteria assesses the policy placement requirement for the candidate to work with a public sector institution, such as within government or a civil society organization. It will also carefully consider your mentor selection. So reference letters will be highly regarded in addition to the proposal. The fourth criteria will assess your commitment and your prior experience relevant to achieving the proposed fellowship goals. And lastly, our fifth criteria is based on how your work plan will act to further career trajectory and informing public sector actions. So with this, we have seen prior ANH fellows from the Amana program progress into high impact jobs in universities, government, and international organizations. So we hope to see similar career development goals in your applications. And as you can see, these domains are weighted on a different point scale. The first 2 criteria are based on 25 points at the highest level, and then that moves into 20 points for the third criteria, and the fourth and fifth are at 15 points. So please do be aware of these point distinctions as you complete your application. And just as a reminder, this information, as well as the information that I will share shortly on the actual application itself, that is all included in the call for applications, which can be found on the website. So I will now move over to a demonstration of our online submission portal. which can be found through the ANH Academy site on our fellowships page. So once you click on that link, it will bring you to Submittable, where you can create and sign up for an account if you have not already. From there, once you log in, you will see the ANH Academy Science Policy Fellowships 2026 to 2027 full application, which I hope you should see on my screen here just to confirm. Alex, is that right? Great.
Yep, looks great.
Okay, so I'll quickly just go through this. The first part of the application is very simple. Just we will have you provide basic information such as your professional full name to be used, publications in promotional work as well, your email address, gender, nationality, your current address and affiliation. And since this is a postdoctoral um, opportunity, we ask that you put in your doctorate degree. And if you have not quite yet defended your thesis or completed your PhD, we do ask that you please put your estimated completion date, as long as that is before the start period between June to December of 2026. And as you can see throughout the application, we have instructions in the subtext. This information is the same as what is in the call for applications. Moving down, here you will upload your CV or resume. And the next part, we will enter into the mentor information, where you will again put in their basic information, name, policy, organization. And one particular note about this section of the application is that you are able to send a reference request email to your mentors at any point when completing this application. So you can do it very early on, and then wait to submit your full proposal for a couple days later. So just note that if you send the request to your mentors, that will not submit your entire application. It will just be this one reference request. So to do that, please put in their email. You're welcome to add a personalized message. And then here you would send or hit the send request now. And before you do that, we do just ask that in your dialogue with your mentors or your proposed mentors, that you let them know which specific distinction they would be holding, so whether you're policy or research. And also let them know to expect an email from notifications@submittable.com. The same information will be repeated for your research. Again, that is a separate form, and you will put in their email here. And an optional feature of the application is to include a third reference letter request for a additional supporter. So this could be your PhD advisor or a current coworker. Same process as well for adding in their email and sending that request. And then moving into the proposal, as Alex and Will have stated, we are asking for a very specific and clear project title that encapsulates the decision-making process in which specific location. Examples are included below, as well as in the call for applications. And then moving down again, we have the entry field for the project proposal itself. So this could be up to 5,000 words plus references cited and any additional materials. Specific subheadings are included below, as well as in the call for applications. So once you submit that and fill out the other information above, you will be all set to submit your application. And we do recommend you to save a draft as many times as possible as you would like. We do not see any of the drafts, just the completed and submitted application. So that is the full application. And I will quickly go back to just show you the reference form that your mentors and an optional supporter will receive. So once they receive that email, click the link, they will be brought to the reference form. And again, they will put in their basic information and they will upload their CV and or resume and a reference letter. So very simple and quick. And that is the online portal. If you have any questions during your application process, we do invite you to reach out at any time. So going back to the slideshow. As I just mentioned, the call for applications and the application portal will be available on the ANH Academy site listed here. The call for applications includes a very thorough FAQ, frequently asked questions section. So this is a great reference if you have any particular questions before reaching out to us. The call has been circulated via the ANH Academy and other organizations such as Evaluation for Earth. And we've also shared it on our social media. So hopefully you have come across this fellowship opportunity through one of those streams. And again, please send any inquiries to anhfellowships@tufts.edu. As I just demonstrated, it is available and submittable. Mentors will receive a specific notification, and it is up to the applicant's responsibility to remind their mentors about these reference forms. And as a quick reminder or review of the timeline, the recruitment of candidates has been open since mid-November, and we are accepting applications until the 28th of February. The selection of fellows will be completed after a review in February and March. The review committee will select a slate of around 3 candidates with 1 to 2 alternates that will be submitted for approval. And once that is completed, candidates and applicants will be notified no later than the 15th of April. The projects would start between June and December 2026. And again, this is up to the fellow and your timeline. Payments will be made after submission of quarterly reports, as Will described. And we have very thorough, regular communication with our fellows via email, very engaging webinars, and monthly calls with our ANH Academy team and prior Amana fellows, and of course, participation in ANH Academy Week. As already explained, fixed payments are included with the progress reports, and this is a fixed payment of 4 different payments across £52,600. And additionally, mentors will submit 2 reports, a mid-course and final mentor report with feedback. And upon those reports being submitted, they will receive 2 installments of their honorarium. So that is a quick review, and that completes this portion of our presentation for the information session. As a reminder, these slides will be available on the ANH website on the fellowships page. And of course, please email us at any time with questions leading up to the February 28th deadline. But thank you so much all for joining, and we will now enter the Q&A portion of this session. So feel free to raise your hand and unmute when we call on you, or just put any questions in the chat. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shaelin. So yeah, just raise your hands using the Zoom feature, or post any questions you have about the chat. This could be about any aspect of the fellowship program. Could be about the application process, about the mentorship or policy placement, or the topic of your fellowship. Really, anything's fair game, and we have the next almost 40 minutes for questions. So great, let's start with Feiruz.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and clarifying things. I have one question to be clarified. There are 2 topics, one on demand and food supply, and then those should be, or it's good if they also cross-cut and have with some climate or gender issues, right? One thing. The other is regarding to policy mentor. It's mentioned that the policy mentor should be from a public institute. What about institutes that support the government in policy decision by providing research products or research outputs, or people who are engaged in economic advisory for government organizations? Are they also eligible? Thank you.
Want to answer, Alex, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, for your first point about the topics of the fellowships, so we have two primary focuses, right? It's demand for healthy diets and food supply loss and waste. We expect that fellowship projects will relate to one or the other. Sometimes they can relate to both, like Olutayo Adeyemi's project relates to both currently in round one. But regardless, whether you have a project focused on demand for healthy diets or food supply loss and waste, they must include one of the two cross-cutting themes. So that's climate change or actions on gender inequity. And then for your question about the policy mentor, I think that would be appropriate. An advisory role is totally fine. But the closer your mentor is to the actual decision-making process, the more competitive your application will be. So if you can make a strong case in your proposal and through the mentor's reference letter that they are actually very well positioned to, influence a decision that you can inform, then I think you should definitely proceed. I'm not sure if you have anything else to add there, Will, but I think what she proposed sounded good.
Excellent. Yeah.
Great. And wow, we have a lot of questions in the chat. It's really great.
So I'll answer some of them in the chat. Feel free to type and I'll answer, and then Alex can answer verbal questions while I type.
Mhm. Yeah, so feel free to raise your hand. We'll do both at once here. Yeah, Wilson?
Yeah, thank you very much for a very inclusive webinar. I am curious to know about which costs can be covered or cannot be covered as, some of institutions has got some kind of administrative costs covered in some projects, but this is a fellowship. So, and if I have surveys, I have experimental data, laboratory data, of which I have to collect. So I would like to get some highlight on that.
Right. So the fellowship is structured around these 4 quarterly payments. And when it comes to what you can use that funding on, it's really at your discretion. So if there are data collection, costs you need to incur, like you can use that funding for those costs. I would say that using the funding for administrative costs or overhead would not be appropriate because the fellowship is meant to fund, you and your work. So this would not be like a grant to your institution, right? This would not be like receiving a grant from a foundation that you would then need to, create line items for and, calculate your indirect costs and do all of those things. This is really, more or less a payment to you to do the activities in the fellowship. Does that help? Does that answer your question, Wilson?
Oh, so the funds will be reversed to me, not my institution, right?
Yeah, and in some cases, we've had administrative situations that have required fellowship funds going to an institution, but then being passed on to the fellow. But in almost every case, the funds will go to the fellow and not the institution that they work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. We have Ashagri.
Thank you very much. Really, this is a very interesting webinar. And maybe I'm not sure if I missed some of the presentation. And I wanted to ask, especially about the research monitors. So the policy monitor, I think it has to be from local institution, especially from government institution. But I wanted to ask, especially the research monitor, specifically where it should be in that regard. Thank you very much.
Sure, that's a great question. So you're right. The policy mentor needs to be placed, physically located in a policy organization, Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia, but your research mentor can be located anywhere. So actually, Dowd's research mentor is based in the UK, but they have a long history of research collaborations, and that made them a good fit. So you have more flexibility on the location of your research mentor than your policy mentor. Great, and we have Kabede.
Yeah, thanks ANH team for organizing this webinar, quite very useful and informative. I have quite a very specific question which I already put in chat, but to make emphasis, Alex, you have already mentioned partly about the fund management in which it is largely channeled to the fellow, the prospective fellow, and then sometimes also to an institution. If you could make it explicit that there is a possibility of channeling it to the employer of the prospective fellow, that could be useful, because some organizations are very strict in the sense that one cannot get additional salary or anything, and then it should be part of the salary of that organization which is paying. So it means the organization will pay on top of that one something, and then but it should be part of the overall salary. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. What I'll say is that it'd be helpful if you can send us an email with your specific situation, and then we can, better address that once we know the details of your employment. But I would say in general to folks on the call, it is preferred and expected that the fellowship funds go to the individual, not the place that they work. Just because of the way that we have structured, what you can spend the fellowship stipend on. So feel free to send us a note and we can dive into the details with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as Will said in the chat, for this kind of project, because it is a full year, in some cases we'd expect employers to grant a leave of absence for that year when it's appropriate. And we
There
have
are
a
questions from the
question.
chat we could address if there's no other hands.
Yeah, I see one from Deston. He's referring to a portion of the call for applications that just says applicants who aim to build careers or already have institutional affiliations in a research institute in Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia are of particular interest. Would you advise still applying if you are not currently affiliated with such an institute, but their research has focused in that region and they have a long-term career interest? I would say yes. I would say that the strongest applicants will have the closest ties as to, especially the policy organization in Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. But as I said, with the research mentor role, your research affiliations, you can have a little bit more flexibility there. But the fellowship, in addition to aiming to inform policy decisions, is a career development fellowship. So if you make a strong case in your proposal that establishing this connection with your research mentor at this institution is going to further your career and align with your career trajectory, that will still be a strong application as well. So great question. Thanks. We have a question from Atene. You can feel free to use your microphone.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for the presentation. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So, and thank you the fellows for sharing their experience. I have a few questions. These questions might help other participants as well. So let me start from the question number one. That's about affiliation. Currently, I'm not affiliated with any organization just after the USAID freeze. So, but I'm working as a consultant. So in the call, I saw a sentence that's written that let me read it. We expect most proposals to specify that the candidate would go on leave from their current employment for the year and return to their current employer afterwards. But the ANH fellowship can also be used as a bridge between employers. So that means even if I'm not affiliated with an organization, I can apply and I am eligible. That's my understanding. So I need you to confirm this.
Yes, it's totally fine if you're a consultant and don't have an affiliation. One of our current fellows actually was a consultant prior to starting
Okay.
fellowship.
Yeah, thank you. So because I am a freelance consultant, that's why I want to make sure that I'm eligible or not. Okay. So the other one is I will apply with an innovative approach to this Science and Policy Fund because it perfectly fits with policy issues. This innovative approach was tested in Ethiopia and Burkina Faso, and it was found very successful in improving the children's diet, specifically the animal source food. So, uh, from the call, I understood that there's a word count for the proposal from abstract to timeline of activities should not exceed 5,000 words. But I would like um, to write a preface just to tell the story behind this innovative approach because it is an indigenous knowledge. So just to give a perfect the clear picture how this indigenous knowledge or how this approach innovative approach came from and how it is designed. So I want to add a preface. So should I still stick to the 5,000, including the preface, or just the preface will be treated exceptionally?
I would
So,
say, for equity reasons, we ask that all fellows to respect the word count on the proposal and to follow the clear headings that we've outlined, because this will allow us to fairly compare proposals, from different people and about different things. So I would encourage you to add that information, but within the structure that we've outlined, just to make all the proposals as similar as possible.
okay, so that means I should cut some words from those titles that were given in the call, because just to write something in the preface.
Yeah, just please follow the headings we've outlined and under
Yeah.
5,000 words, please.
Okay, great. The other question is, does ANH notify me if all the letters from and the CVs from my mentors are submitted? That helps me check, with my mentors and to ensure everything is submitted. Will I get any notification from ANH?
Shaelin, do you know?
I don't believe there's any automated response that would come from submittable. It's up to the applicant's responsibility to check in with their mentors to make sure that those letters are submitted prior to the deadline.
Yeah. So the answer is
Okay.
no.
And that would be something that you would also be able to check through the application portal. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't send any of those reminders or notifications.
But Shaelin, just to confirm, you said that the person can see in the submittable portal if the letter was uploaded.
Yes, that's correct.
So you don't have to ask the person, you can see if it was uploaded.
Yeah, that's right. But if they haven't submitted yet, that is up to the applicant's responsibility to provide those nudges.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Wonderful. And it looks like there's been some great questions that Will and I have been responding to in the chat. If we have happened to miss anyone's questions, feel free to unmute and ask that question.
And one question that was asked in the chat that I think just would be helpful for most people to hear. Mercy asked if her policy mentor can come from the same organization where she currently works, because the organization does a lot of work in the research to policy interface, and that is very acceptable and actually what Palashti is doing right now in Sri Lanka. So there's precedent for that, and I think it's a very appropriate way to find your policy mentor. So thanks for asking that question, Mercy. And we can end early if there's not questions from the rest of the folks on the call. But we still do have 20 more minutes scheduled. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask us now, I'd encourage you to do so. As I said earlier, and as we put in the chat, our whole team's reachable at that ANH fellowships at Tufts.edu email. So send us a note anytime you like. Okay, great. Wilson has another question.
Thanks, Alex, again for this opportunity. And I have learned a lot through this webinar, and I'm grateful that we still have some more time to get engaged. And I have a question. I have completed my PhD 2 years ago, and one of the potential policymakers I was working with, she's no longer involved in the government. She's working abroad, and she's not involved directly in implementation of the local policies. So I don't know, in that context, should I continue seeking her mentorship, or I should involve or engage someone who is directly working on policy formulation, implementation within the country right now?
Yeah, good question. I would say that the most successful approach would be to use your connection with her to find someone who's actually still involved locally. So the closer you are to the decision-making process, the stronger your application will be. So it sounds like if she's not involved in the policy organization anymore and isn't even living in the country, she wouldn't be the best fit for a policy mentorship, but she might be able to find someone for you who would be. So I would still leverage that connection, but to find a different person.
Okay, thanks. And when I talk about policy mentorship, and we have this local country level policy decision makers or policy makers, and then we have the regional policy makers, and then we have global policy makers. So I don't know the coverage. Should we focus at country specific or regional, or could be policy making at the high level?
So I'd say the focus is at the national, regional, and local levels first. Those are our priorities. But a good question. Thank you.
You could add that all 4 of the existing projects are about the central federal government of each country, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Ethiopia, and Pakistan. But in some cases, there could be a state government that's sufficiently large to have high impact in countries where there's a subnational region that's sufficiently large to be really important. And in a few cases, we could imagine a regional effort, but clearly most decisions that really matter come from the central national governments. And they're, of course, the hardest to reach. It's very important to recognize that this is an enormously challenging problem, that bringing research to policy is one of the hardest challenges of our time, that governments are typically disconnected from research. They're typically focused on their political or security concerns, and bringing evidence into that requires enormous skill and attention, specifically to the challenge of bringing research to policy. It is not expected to be easy. It is something that definitely requires this kind of specialized attention if it's to happen at all. We recognize that most researchers are not in the business of influencing government. Most research is in the business of discovering something new. And so can we bring those new findings to policy is a whole other skill set and whole other agenda, which this new ANH Academy science policy platform is devoted to trying to build for the 21st century. One slightly other point, picking up on a comment in a question in the chat, concerns linking to previous work of the LSHTM or Tufts University or previous work of the ANH Academy. And we definitely are happy to have work that leverages prior connections, and also happy to have entirely new work. So there's no conflict of interest, but there's also no special advantage or disadvantage. Our goal, again, is project proposals that will leverage work you, particularly yourself, have already done. What is special about you? What do you bring? Your particular prior research that would be of value to informing government. And then what is the plan for the 12 months in which you would do that? So it's very nice to see familiar names, people that we've worked with in the past. I'm really glad that you're here, and also really happy to see lots of new people as the ANH Academy grows.
Can I ask another question?
Sir, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, my question is that I am the PhD scholar candidate. I have finished my coursework, and now for the year of 2026, I will be opting my research work. So can I put my research work if it is aligning with the objectives of this fellowship? Like, can I apply for it? Or is it necessary for the participant to be already a PhD?
Yeah, it will be necessary for applicants to have completed their PhD prior to starting. But that's an important note for people on the call. If you're currently a graduate student aiming to complete their PhD at some point in 2026, as long as you complete that degree prior to the start date of the fellowship, you are still eligible. So you can be completing your degree up until December of 2026 and still remain eligible for the fellowship.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Antone, one more question from you.
Yes, just one quick question. My policy mentor, she's the head of the Food and Nutrition Office in the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia. She's under the ministry, under the Minister of the Ministry of Agriculture. So can she be both the policy? Can she write both the policy mentor support letter and the host organization letter?
Yeah. And I just would add that there's only 2 letters that are required. There's one from your research mentor and one from your policy mentor. Policy mentor letter should explain how they personally will be involved in your fellowship and how the organization they work for will host you. So it's 2 aims in that one letter.
Combining what had previously from round 1 been 2 separate letters. So Antone, they had been 2 separate, but now they're one for exactly the reason that of your question.
Oh, so this time there is no need of having a letter from the host organization.
No, that's
Correct.
combined with the policy mentor letter.
Oh, so it's just only two letters from the policy mentor and the research mentor. So there will be no third letter from the organization, the host organization. No.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Because the policy mentor is expected to be speaking to that question. If the policy mentor's letter does not explicitly state what the institutional arrangements by which policy impact would be achieved, then the project is less competitive, because the whole purpose is for the policy mentor to explain what is the pathway to impact.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your question. Any other questions from folks still on the call?
Theojan asked a very good question in the chat, which is that the 3 fellowships we can support this year are expected to complement, meaning to match or support or be different from but similar to complement the existing 4 fellowships from this year. And Theojan asks, what does that mean? What does it mean to complement? So in some cases, it could mean more work in the same domain, but usually it would mean different work. So different in some way, different countries, different topics, different methods, different kinds of evidence. And so it complements it in the sense that it'll give us, for the fellowship program as a whole, a broader range of coverage. It's also possible that a very strong proposal would go further and deeper in the same area, but it's unlikely. Like, I think most likely to complement means diversify in terms of countries and methods and topics. But that's not to rule out something that would go further in the same direction.
So we still have 10 minutes or so. So we'll wait a little bit longer if folks have things they want to ask, and then if not, we'll end a bit early. But just want to thank you all for being here. I think we had almost 60 people join the call, so it's really great to see this interest in the fellowship. And thanks to Pulashli Dowd and Wajia for sharing, a little about what they do. And as you mentioned, if you have any questions at all about your fellowship, you can email us, anhfellowships@tufts.edu, where we'll get back to you right away. And great last question about this meeting from Alaza, asking if this recording will be available online. Yes, it will. We've been recording this session. We'll post it to the fellowship's site, and I'll put that link in the chat now. And I think if there's no other questions, I think we can end it here. Thanks again, everybody. Really looking forward to seeing all the proposals and working with hopefully a selection of you in round 2. So thanks again.
And I would just add huge thanks to Shaelin and Alex for organizing this, to all of you for joining. And if you haven't yet joined the ANH Academy, do so, because there's lots of other great resources there to help build the kind of work we're talking about. Thanks so much.